Your kid hurt himself, we have to give you something? This took place about 2 weeks ago and I feel that this is the right place for it. Now to the story. My cousin is like the sister I never had, she's the most incredible person I've ever had the joy of knowing. We were spending the day together, going around to all different places, shopping, eating, etc. One of her skills is being able to roller skate, which she often does instead of walking. We were going through a park, when we stopped for a break and a snack. We see the sun starting to go down, my awesome cousin checks her watch, I mentioned this for later, and we knew we had about an hour and a half until we had to be back home. We got up, she started skating away, when all of a sudden, a boy walking next to her suddenly decided to throw himself in front of her. The entitled kid started bawling his eyes out as the entitled mom came running to him, shoving us both aside. What did you do to him? He ran right in front of me. I've learnt that my awesome cousin is prone to panic attacks, so I hold her hand firmly. Entitled kid stands up perfectly unharmed. Entitled mom looks at us, we ask if there's anything else. She proceeds to demand something from us as compensation. The entitled kid cheers her on. My awesome cousin takes off her hoodie, a sign she's not feeling so good. Under her long sleeve top, entitled kid spots her watch. He points and yells that he wants it. Awesome cousin pulls her sleeve down, but the entitled mom attempts to grab her arm to wrangle it from her. My awesome cousin has told me before that it's worth around 80 pounds, so there's no way she was having it. All the while the entitled kid is complaining about wanting it. What happened next was over so quick it's hard to recall. A man sitting nearby strode towards entitled mom and entitled kid, they see him and absolutely bricked it. Me and my awesome cousin ran and skated from there, just got outside the park gates when my awesome cousin fully broke down on me. This is what happens when people think they're better than others. Entitled mom gets mad when I yell at her disabled son for feeling me up. So this happened when I was maybe 11. Back when laser tag was all the rage, I was invited to a birthday party of a cousin of my best friend, a little boy named Raul. Raul, me, and some other kids notice another strange kid trying to play with us. We'll call him DM. He told us he was actually 20 and it was clear he was disabled, and though he kind of seemed like a kid, in size and mannerisms, he was not. Anyway, DM starts following us and trying to play with us, but obviously something seems a little off about it. Basically he starts trying to feel me up. He starts with nonchalantly touching my shoulders. Then my hips and closer to my chest. I tell him to leave me alone and my group of friends basically all tell him to go away. Well, the entitled mom comes roaring in, along with Ed, to berate me on what a horrible bully I was for not allowing her son to play with us because he was disabled. M got my mom, who took me from the party, as a burst into tears. While back at my mom's friend's place, the adults get ready to talk me down for picking on a disabled kid, who was 20, when I, still sobbing, finally managed to say, he kept touching me, and it was like a record player grinded to a halt. My mom stood and asked, touching you where? I showed her and she left to get on the phone to the host of the party. Her friends turn to me and say, you should have punched him in the face. My boyfriend's entitled cousin tried to stop us from sleeping in the same room, in his home. We'll call the cousin Karen, her husband Todd, and their kids. There had been a terrible fire in Karen and Todd's home, and while they and their kids were unharmed, their possessions were destroyed. They did have insurance, but claimed that they couldn't afford a hotel room till things got sorted out. Normally, my boyfriend's parents would have allowed them to stay at their place, but they were out of town and wouldn't return until a couple of days later. And they knew better than to let this family have free reign over their house. Boyfriend's sister was suddenly unwell and unable to have guests in her home. I do not blame her one bit. I would have done the same. So the responsibility to be there for family fell squarely on my boyfriend's shoulders. He agreed to let them stay in his guest bedroom till his parents got back. I tried to talk him out of it, but my man is kind and caring to a fault. It's what I love about him the most, but sometimes it's also the one thing I wish I could change about him. Anyway, I had been out of town for a few days and BF picked me up from the airport and we went straight to his place. Karen and Todd acted happy to see me. Of course they did. What choice did they have? After a surprisingly quiet and peaceful dinner, we decided to go to bed. This is how the conversation that followed went. Boyfriend. Karen, my girlfriend and I are going to bed. If your kids are going to watch TV, just make sure the volume is down. Karen, what do you mean, you and her? You can't sleep in the same room. Not while my kids are here. Boyfriend, what? Karen, you can live a sinful lifestyle all you want, but I don't want my kids exposed to it. I don't want to have to explain to them why a man and a woman who are not husband and wife are sleeping in the same bed. It'll be a bad influence on them. Boyfriend, you're in my home. Karen, you can't enforce your rules here. Just go to bed and keep your nose out of where it doesn't belong. Besides, it's not like we're doing it in front of your kids. I don't see how this would affect them. Todd, she's right, you really shouldn't be sleeping together if you're not married. But if you're gonna do that anyway, you should just go to her place. Boyfriend, I have a better idea. Why don't you pack your things and get out of my apartment? Karen, wiping off invisible tears. How could you say that? We're family. Why would you try to traumatize our kids with your sinful lifestyle? You're just being cruel. Our kids are being raised in a godly home and I'm protecting them from sin. Boyfriend, now raising his voice, I haven't started to get cruel yet. Just pack your things and go stay in a hotel room. Todd, being the slightly more sensible one, knew that my boyfriend meant business and he somehow got his wife to go to the guest room. He then apologized to my boyfriend and spewed some kind of BS about his wife being upset due to recent events, the fire, and that she didn't know what she was saying, as an excuse for her behavior. My boyfriend told him they could stay, but to remember that he wasn't going to be pushed around in his own home. Later on, as we were busy engaging in our favorite activity, my bad side had the urge to scream loud enough for the entitled family to hear me. But, as I didn't want to muddy the waters anymore, I decided against it. You can't eat cheese because my son hates it. This story is about my roommate, a very peculiar guy about whom I have a lot of stories to share, but I prefer to write more short anecdotes about him than a lot of different events altogether, so let me know if you'd like to hear them. The first time he came to see the house, he showed up with his parents. They asked 1,000 questions about the house, then called the landlord to say that they would rent an entire room with 2 beds instead of just 1 bed in it. He didn't want to share the room with others, but he didn't want to rent a room with a single bed because he needed more space than the others. That was the moment where I realized I was facing an entitled family. After renting the room, the father sat down on the sofa with a grunt and the mother began washing everything the son could touch during his stay, not the rest of the house, though. So at dinner time we couldn't cook or eat, because the lady had to rub the furniture chosen by the son to store his belongings, the shelf of the refrigerator that the son had chosen to occupy, and so on. At a certain point, while I was in my room, I heard them calling me loudly, so I ran to the kitchen thinking of what could have been happened. The son was behind the mother, with folded arms, and she was vigorously rubbing the door of a piece of furniture. She looked at me and asked, "Do you eat cheese?" I thought about it for a moment and answered, "Well, it depends, some types of cheese." She glanced at me again, this time with pity in her eyes, and added, "Well, my son doesn't like cheese, okay." I wasn't sure how to respond, so I tried to joke about it. "Well, it means I won't offer him dairy products," I replied laughing, but they were very serious. "Do you really have to eat it?" she continued. "Eat what, the cheese?" At this point, I was genuinely confused. The son just stared at me. "Why, is he allergic?" I asked after a moment of reflection. It was very strange to talk about his son, who was more than 20 years old, as if he were not there. "No," the mother replied, "but he thinks it sucks anyway." I was in the okay phase again. "I understand," I just answered, without really understanding. But she didn't let go. "However, you can cook a lot of things without buying cheese. There is no need to eat it." At this point, it was starting to become a matter of principle for me. I understand that, but it doesn't suck for me. In fact, there are some very good types of cheese. Here the boy snorted, whereupon I turned to him because the situation was starting to get really ridiculous. "You don't drink milk?" "Yes," he finally spoke. "And you don't eat yogurt?" I kept asking. Yes, he continued. So the mother, suddenly satisfied, intruded again. Exactly, you can eat milk and yogurt, he likes them. But I'm the one who eats cheese, not him, I repeated a little dully, without really knowing what else to say. She got annoyed. Whoever eats it has nothing to do with it. At our house cheese doesn't come in because otherwise, he throws it away, he can't even stand it. That's right, at your house, I replied. 3 people live in this house, even if I choose to not eat cheese anymore I certainly can't force the other boy to do the same. My reasoning didn't intimidate the lady, who tried to protest, but at that point, I simply turned on my heels and left. Unfortunately, the matter didn't end there. For months we quarreled over the cheese problem, with the boy screaming every time he saw it on our plates, in the fridge or elsewhere. 2 years have passed, but he's still a huge pain.